Good morning. That's my first official ringing of the bell. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to all of you, those of you gathered in this sanctuary and those of you watching online. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Alton, Illinois. My name is Reverend Taves, and it is my honor and privilege to serve this congregation. My pronouns are she, her. In this congregation, we are people of many ages, many backgrounds, and many beliefs. We are people of diverse orientations, identifications, family structures, and abilities. We try to be brave and curious. We like to think, but we also like to do. We strive to create spirituality and community beyond boundaries and beyond these walls. We are working for more justice and more love in our own lives and in the world. If you are visiting, a very special welcome to you. There are many things you could be doing on this beautiful Sunday morning, and you've chosen to be with us. I hope that your time with us will be meaningful, that you will feel warmly welcomed if you are here in person. Please be sure to sign the guest book before you go so that we can stay in touch with you. And if you're visiting us online, please let us know that you are here so that we can welcome you personally. You can email firstuuchurchalton@outlook.com, and then we can welcome you personally to this beloved community. We open our service with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Hoft. A central ritual in the Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. It symbolizes that we have entered sacred space and are preparing our hearts for the blessing of beloved community that happens whenever we gather. If you're watching elsewhere and have a chalice or candle, please light it now as we all join in saying the unison words projected on the screen. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Please join with me in the spirit of prayer and meditation as you are willing and able. This prayer has been adapted from the original by Reverend Victoria Weinstein. Please join me. Spirit of life and love, we have gathered again out of our separateness to know that we are not alone. In our fears, we are not alone. In our grasping for peace, finding it in fleeting moments and losing it again to some turmoil of mind and heart, we are not alone. In our cynical moments, our wonderings, is this all there is? Is this the best we can do? We are not alone. In our pain, we are not alone. And so we dwell in you, Spirit of healing and wholeness, for this brief time, willing to be held here in an intense and eternal love whose origins we do not know, whose reality is irresistible. It calls us on. It reaches between us to fill spaces. It consoles the grieving. It calms the anxious. It gives new vision to eyes dimmed by tears and exhaustion. It opens the ear to deeper truth. It makes a place in the heart as hope. Let us rest in this peace and be held here. Let us enter into a moment of silence for the prayers of our own hearts. Let us speak the names of those we would hold in prayer. May these prayers be held in the crucible of this beloved community. Amen, and blessed be. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 40, The Morning Hangs a Signal. Please be seated. So our story this morning is one that many of you will know very well, and some of you may be hearing for the first time. But it's certainly a story that I loved when I was a child, and it always can do with another telling, because its truth is timeless. Once upon a time, there lived an emperor. He was a rich emperor. He was a handsome emperor. But most important of all, he was a well-dressed emperor. The emperor loved to parade through town, showing off his fine and fancy clothes. He would wave to the townspeople and say, "I like fine pants. I like them. I do. I like new hats and new socks and new shoes." Well, one day, two strangers came to town, claiming to be weavers of a fabulous golden cloth. "Our golden cloth has a magical quality," they said. "Some people cannot even see it," they said. The emperor was surprised by this. "Some cannot see it? Now, how can that be? Who cannot see it? I hope it's not me." The weavers assured the emperor that he would see the magical cloth because he was clearly a wise emperor and the cloth was only visible to a fool. So this gave the emperor an idea. He could use this magical cloth to learn who in his town was a fool. So he said to the weavers, "You will make it for me. I must see what you do. I will pay you with gold. You will show me a fool." The emperor gave the weavers chests full of gold. Then he sent them off to make their magical cloth, telling them, "Don't work on anything else." As he waited for the cloth to be done, the emperor thought to himself, "I want to go see it. I have to. I do. But if I don't see it, then am I a fool?" So the emperor sent his faithful servant, Fred, to check on the progress of the cloth. When Fred arrived, the weavers showed him the weaving loom and told him they were weaving the magical cloth with threads of golden silk. Fred, however, saw nothing. And as he looked, he thought to himself, "Oh no, I see nothing. No cloth do I see, but I will not say so. No fool will I be." Fred rushed back and told the emperor of the wondrous beauty of the beautiful cloth, the golden cloth. And excited by the news, the emperor gave the weavers more gold, and he told them to weave the cloth faster. The next day, as he waited for the cloth to be finished, the emperor thought, "I'm sure I will see it. I'll see it like Fred. I will go and see it, but first I'll send Ted." So Ted, another faithful servant of the emperor, was sent to check on the progress of the cloth. The weavers told Ted that surely a man as wise as he could see that the cloth was now almost completed. Ted, however, saw nothing. And as he looked, he thought to himself, "I really see nothing. No cloth do I see, but I will not say so. No fool will I be." Ted hurried back and told the emperor of the splendor of the golden cloth. So excited was the emperor that he paid the weavers even more gold to finish the weaving by the next day. And the next morning, the emperor woke up bright and early. "It's time for a look. It's a thing I must do. I know I will see it, for I am no fool." The emperor, with 4 faithful servants, set out to see the cloth. The weavers pointed to the loom and smiled. The weavers said that surely men as wise as the emperor and his servants would be able to see the finished cloth in all its glory. The emperor and his servants, however, saw nothing at all. They saw there was nothing. No cloth did they see, but they would not say so, because no fool they would be. Each trusted servant praised the beauty of the cloth. "It's brilliant," said the first. "It's amazing," said the second. "It's dazzling," said the third. "It's stunning," said the fourth. And the emperor eagerly agreed with their descriptions. The next day, the emperor paraded through town as he had so often before. He was not only excited to show off his new clothes, but also to learn who in his town was a fool. And as he strutted down the street, a crowd began to gather. Never before had so many people come out to see the emperor's new clothes. And since no one in town wanted to be thought a fool, no one would admit there were no clothes there. "He looks good in gold," said people with a grin. "And see how those pants help make him look so thin." Then, at last, a tiny voice spoke up from the crowd. It was the voice of a child. It was the voice of truth. "I do not see pants or a cape made of gold. He better get dressed, or he may catch a cold." The townspeople could hardly believe their ears. Did the foolish child think the emperor was parading through town in his underwear? The child pointed to the emperor. You say he is dressed, and yet nothing is there. He has nothing on but his blue underwear. Then another small voice spoke up, agreeing with the child about the emperor's clothes, and then another and another. The small voices swelled, then big voices joined in until finally the whole town spoke the truth. We do not see clothes, just a belly that's bare. We do not see clothes because no clothes are there. Soon everyone was seeing what was really there and what was not. As laughter began to fill the air, the emperor blushed and hid behind a bush. He had set out to discover who in his town was a fool, and now he knew. I looked for a fool, now at last I can see. I found the town fool, and the town fool is me. And that is the end of the story. Our children are welcome to go back to the play area. We are a caring community where we share the joys which lift our hearts and the sorrows which bring us pain. As part of our worship service, we always take time for the expression of joys, concerns, and sorrows. There are electric candles here up front. When the music begins, you are invited to come forward as you wish, to light a candle representing what is ever in your heart and thoughts. If you have mobility issues, please raise your hand and we'll light a candle for you, or we'll take it to you. Actually, you can light it and we'll bring it back. If you're watching from home, you're welcome to light a candle to join with us here. Let us begin. May the joys and sorrows represented by these lights be held in the crucible of this beloved community. And may we know that in our joys and in our sorrows, we are not alone. Our reading this morning is called Tila by Reverend Mark L. Bellatini, and it's drawn from the Jewish tradition. Baruch atah Ameth. Blessed are you, O truth, like the fabled Moses. I too can claim to never have seen you face to face. Too often I've hung my own face on you and pretended that I know something I do not. Indeed, my own honest heart confesses that at most I have only caught the briefest glimpse of you, O truth, at the very edge of my eye. And only when I get out of my own way, my own rush, my own fury, I sense your cool shadow on me. When I grow hot from tears I've been holding back, or when I notice a sadness or whimsy hiding in the silent eyes of those around me, I sense your closeness. When I gaze at a star suddenly unveiled by a toreador cloud, or catch an early yellowness in the leaves of the oak, it's then that I feel a brush of wings nearby and realize that I am only a small part of it all. Then I know that I am not the great high power of the world, but only a puff of breath hidden amid the mighty blasts of the great whirlwind called the universe. Like a lace wing barely floating on the tip of a small blade of green grass is my life from beginning to end. A short footnote to a vast essay of stars and space unbounded. An essay neither signed nor finally symbolic. And yet, this truth, your truth, is no sadness, but a joy. No lack, but a blessing. Like the sight of a child at play, totally absorbed in the moment and glad. Blessed are you, O truth, who plays in this silence like a child in the waves of an infinite sea. Baruch atah Emeth. I invite us to remain seated for our next hymn, 403, Spirit of Life, of Truth, of Power. We will sing it twice. If ever there was a time when truth itself seemed to be at stake, it would be this time. It seems as if there are emperors with no clothes all around us. And we're waiting. We're waiting for a child to say, that guy's got no clothes on. Unless you live under a rock, and I won't judge you if you do, this is an era that will go down in history because we are in a fierce struggle for truth. What truth is, what truth means, what truth asks of us, whose truths get told, and whose truths matter. We are in primary season. Many of your mailboxes have been stuffed with campaign flyers for weeks. In Missouri, we had ours just a few weeks ago. In Illinois, yours is coming up. And if you want to get a sense of where we're at for the struggle for truth, all you have to do is go to your mailbox and look at those campaign flyers. And they're a unique place to start because candidates try to sway your vote using codes, phrases, and trigger words that are part of a carefully packaged worldview, espousing certain claimed truths. In my district in Missouri, where our primaries are over, the Republican state House candidates were out-conservativing each other, going straight for gun rights, abortion bans, which they already are in Missouri, so really? Lowering taxes, cutting government waste, and getting rid of critical race theory. Every one of these issues points to a particular understanding of what is true and what that truth asks of us. And I noticed that neither of them ever mentioned the former president. There were certainly places and truth they did not want us to look at. One of the coolest flyers I got, and if flyers can be cool, is this one from a PAC owned by the Koch brothers, who are far-right donors. And they were aimed at Democrats who might be considering a Republican ticket to elect a weak candidate for U.S. Senator on the Republican side. And you all probably know who that was. They attacked a Republican state house candidate for not paying her taxes or voting. And who values taxes and thinks taxes are actually a beneficial thing in our society? It was clear who the party brass thought they were talking to and what truths would influence their vote. In politics, truth is elastic. It stretches and contracts depending on the strategies being used, which often have to pivot in a heartbeat. The wrong facts revealed by the right people in the right way can cripple you. Many of us are hoping that the truths revealed by the January 6th House Committee hearings will lead to real accountability. And we're also terrified to hope for that, in case our hearts are broken again. So yeah, we are in a struggle for truth, for whose understanding of reality gets to prevail. And this struggle has the power to shape what's possible for us, what's possible for our kids, what's possible for our city, the environment, women, sexual and gender minorities, disabled people, people of color, indigenous people, the poor, and so on and so on. Today, we're talking about the power of truth in our complex time. As Unitarian Universalists, we have often proclaimed that the truth sets us free. Through most of our Unitarian and Universalist history, we have trusted that when you tell the truth, share the truth, proclaim the truth, people are changed. The world is changed. Justice prevails. Look at our fourth principle. We covenant to affirm and promote the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, one of my favorite principles. If you're new to Unitarian Universalism, our 7 principles are at the heart of our faith. There are guideposts for ethical living, transformation, and wholeness, both as individuals and as a beloved community. But in a time when truth is so politicized, how do we proclaim this anymore? The issue of truth itself has become plastic, diced and sliced through systems of oppression that dehumanize us and turn us into servants of a falling empire. And yes, we are in a falling empire. I'm going to confess something to you. I am getting heartbroken and cynical about the power of truth to make things right. It feels like we are in a crowd watching an emperor parade around in blue underwear. And all around us, people are cheering at how stately he is. And we're wondering, who the hell believes this? Right? Who has the courage to say, hello, the emperor has no clothes? Many of us have probably fantasized about being that child who has the courage to say what's really happening. We all want to be the truth teller. We want to be the good guys, the ones who open another's eyes. But there are so many examples we can point to when the truth didn't matter. The truth often hasn't mattered when a black or brown person faces brutality, police brutality, or when a trans person faces transphobia. It doesn't often matter to voters or our legislators. It often doesn't matter to those with power. We're trying to hang on and commit to the spiritual practice of hope, truth, and the belief that that truth will restore us, that truth can still lead to justice and transform our society in ways that we believe will create healing, wholeness, and peace. It's what we want to teach our children, right? We teach them that honesty is a virtue. We teach them that an honest heart is a good heart. We reward them when they tell the truth. We want them to experience that truth really matters. We want truth to anchor all of us in how we love each other and hold each other throughout our whole lives. This morning, I want to share with you a story from our Unitarian history, from the Unitarian side of our heritage, of a time when our Unitarian ancestors refused to shut up, refused to stop proclaiming their truth, even when there were deadly consequences. And it doesn't have the happiest ending. Okay, so I want to prepare you for that. You have to look for the good stuff among a lot of bad stuff. So maybe that actually makes it the perfect story for us, because we're looking for good stuff in a lot of bad stuff. So have faith in this story, okay? It does get us somewhere closer to our conviction that truth grounds us in the transformative power of love. So we're going way back to Western Europe in the 1500s, like way back. A pretty potent time, another fierce era of the struggle for truth. This was the era of the Protestant Reformation that created Protestantism, and the Radical Reformation that created our faith tradition. For those of you who aren't history buffs, here is a 1-minute recap of one of the biggest moments in Western European history. Okay, hold on. In the late 1400s, there was only one church in Western Europe, the Roman Catholic Church, which was all-powerful. Eastern Europe had the Orthodox Church. Western Europe had the Catholic Church. There was some bleed over in between them, but mostly that's where they were. Many people had become disillusioned with the Catholic Church because it was completely wed with the state. There was no separation of church and state back there. It was unthinkable. And Roman Catholicism, they believed, had been corrupted by power. They had become disillusioned with that corruption, and they protested. And Martin Luther captured their resentments on paper, and he nailed them to the door of his church. He basically said to the Roman Catholic Church, "You are an emperor with no clothes." It's pretty much what he was saying. So he started a theological protest with massive political implications. Lots of people died for this, often in very horrific public ways. But through all this, by the early 1500s, the Protestant Church was formed. So there were now two Christian churches in Western Europe. There was the Roman Catholic and the Protestant Lutheran. But then came the Radical Reformation, which started in the 1520s. which said that the first Protestant Reformation hadn't gone far enough to separate church and state. These were the radical reformers, and this is where Unitarianism emerged, along with Baptists, Mennonites, Doukhobors, Amish, Dutch Reform, and more. We all started at that time. We are siblings. Now, all had their own claim to fame. So, for instance, the Mennonites' claim to fame was pacifism, and you're only baptized as an adult upon confession of faith. Totally radical for its time. No more infant baptism. The Unitarians' claim to fame was that Jesus was not God, that the whole Father, Son, Holy Ghost thing was a heresy. It was an emperor with no clothes. This idea reached Poland in 1550, which is where our story takes place. These ideas were welcomed among the Catholic humanists. Yes, there are Catholic humanists, believe it, who were questioning what their church had become. Just like today, there are many Catholics questioning what their church has become. And they called themselves Arians. Not Aryans as white supremacists, but Arians after Arius, a 14th century theologian who said Jesus wasn't God. They got all kinds of flack for that. Some of them dying for the truth they professed, also in very public, horrifying ways. But then in 1573, something happened. There was an open-minded king who took the throne in Poland. And the Polish National Assembly passed what was called the Warsaw Confederation that allowed for religious tolerance and religious freedom. This was so radical. It had never existed before in Europe. And so what happened to all those radical reformers who were all over Europe, being burned at the stake? They fled to Poland. Poland became a hub for radical reformers, including the Unitarians. So the Arian community grew like crazy. They founded their own town called Rakow. And it was filled with schools, libraries, churches, and printing presses. Rakow became the center of Unitarian thought in Europe. And so they published countless flyers, books, articles, and sermons about their beliefs and shared them absolutely everywhere. It was like a data dump on Europe. Krakow became the center, and they just showered Europe with their literature because they believed they had a divine mission to share the truth that had liberated them with everyone, no one excluded. A mission, I say, that we still carry with us today. We can't hold on to this for ourselves. We are called to share it so that others can experience what we have been blessed with. So Rakow became this lightning rod of Unitarian thought. And in 1576, Faustus Socinus arrived from Italy, and he was this charismatic theologian, writer, and speaker, and he helped them take their faith to the next level of cohesion. He dismissed the idea that human beings were born sinful, so no more original sin, and he dismissed the theology that Jesus died for our sins, so no more atonement. No more original sin, no more atonement. And he also proclaimed that you could not take any human life, so you were to be pacifist, nor were you to pursue any wealth or public office because you would be corrupted. If you wanted to stay pure, you had to stay away from having any role of power with the state or be wealthy. He also promoted this idea that has stayed with us and that was really unique. We were the first ones to put this out there. You achieved eternal life through knowing and sharing God in acts of kindness, humility, generosity, and prayer. It might have been the first time that any Christian community said it's more important how you live than what you believe. Something we also still profess today. But unfortunately, the winds of intolerance returned. A new king who opposed the Reformation took the crown. And there was a turn of public opinion against all these radical reformers who had saturated Poland. They wanted them out. So Poland and its leaders were done. And they considered the Unitarians the most dangerous of all because of our position on the Trinity. And things got really bad after 1600. Leaders were executed. Homes and churches and graves were ransacked. In 1638, the Polish Senate ordered the destruction of Krakow, especially its printing presses. The best way to suppress a people is to take away the means to share their truth. Just ask our former president what happened when Twitter banned him. Not long after the destruction of Krakow, the hammer fell on us. The Polish National Senate declared that our ancestors had to either renounce their faith or leave Poland, and refusal meant execution. So I warned you this is a hard story. Here's the hard stuff. Almost immediately, people began renouncing their faith. They didn't want to leave their families. They didn't want to leave their homes and communities. They wanted to stay. But a core of people refused. They still hoped that the truth would prevail. So what did they do? They had one answer when faced with intolerance. They kept going. They kept writing. They kept talking, always talking about what they believed and how it had set them free. You know Pete Seeger's song, If I Had a Hammer? Well, they hammered in the morning, they hammered in the evening, and they hammered all over the land. And when violence erupted, their first response was always to invite their persecutors to talk. Can you imagine? They would do this after an execution, after a school burning, after mobs tore up their town, when their graves were desecrated. They would say, let's get together and talk. Can you imagine the courage and the conviction that took? There was this deep trust that if they just kept hammering away with their truth, those who persecuted them would say, oh my gosh, we were so wrong. We will stop burning you at the stake and smashing your presses. Do you think that happened? So there they were with this looming decree forcing them out of Poland. And they managed to secure a meeting to sit with Catholic leaders. They defended their faith with everything they had, and there are reports even that some hearts were softened. But did anybody change their mind? No. The decree stood. And so those who refused to renounce their faith scattered to Transylvania, East Prussia, Germany, Holland, everywhere and anywhere they hoped it would be safe, because no place truly was safe anymore, now that Poland wasn't. So Unitarianism in Poland was done. It was wiped out. So it's a sad story. This is a very sad story, but I warned you. From the outside, this looks like a total and complete tragedy. But let's go look for the good stuff amongst all the bad stuff. Let's look at some truths about the 100 years that our ancestors were privileged to have in Poland. 100 years of a unified community committed to peace, love, justice, curiosity, and knowledge. A community that raised its children to love peace and to practice tolerance. One of the first churches to understand salvation is happening by our actions, not our beliefs. And a community that saturated Europe with its ideas about what it means to be a person of faith and how we connect to the holy. You know, you have to remember that this is before TV, before radio, before smartphones. The printed word was all powerful, and Unitarian thought had literally dropped into every community. You couldn't burn everything that was out there. It was impossible. When you killed the human, you couldn't kill their ideas, which had spread far beyond Poland. And when the remnants of that Unitarian community spread through Europe, their ideas spread with them. And this is the thing. Our ancestors never saw themselves as just being for themselves. They were there to serve through their love for the God they believed in and through their love for humanity. So while it could look like it had been all for nothing, which happens when you hone in on just those hard years, when you step back and take the long view, their legacy is still with us 400 years later. The fact that they wouldn't shut up, that they kept hammering their truth upon the hearts of those who might listen, is one reason we are here in 2022 in Alton, Illinois. We exist because of them. We never know where truth is going to land and how it transforms and what will change. I'm reminded of our reading this morning by Reverend Mark Bellatini. Blessed are you, O truth. Like the fabled Moses, I have only caught the briefest glimpse of you at the very edge of my eye. And only when I get out of my own way, my own rush, my own fury, I sense your closeness. I feel a brush of wings nearby. This truth, your truth, is no sadness but a joy, no lack but a blessing. Blessed are you, O truth. We are always being blessed by a brush of wings. How many of you tuned into the Kansas primary in early August? Following the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which means abortion is no longer a civil right in our country, a constitutional amendment was put on the Kansas ballot to open the door to a complete ban on abortion. Money flowed into Kansas from both sides. Think tanks worked up the messaging they hoped would hold the truth in a way that it could be heard. Mailboxes once again filled with flyers. People knocked on doors. And in this deep red state, an overwhelming majority heard the truth and chose to protect the right to an abortion. This deep red state protected all those who can bear children and those who love them. It was stunning. Everyone was stunned. Nobody expected that result. And yet here it was. And this is what I want us to hold on to, what I want to hold up for you this morning. Let us never doubt the power of truth. Even in the darkest moment, when our hearts are breaking and doubts flood our spirit and we're being misled by emperors with no clothes, let us proclaim our truth. Let us share it with our children, our loved ones, our community, our nation. Let us live into the legacy of our ancestors and never, ever shut up. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Thank you. Now you know what we're going to sing now, right? Because I mentioned it in the sermon. If I had a hammer, please rise in body or spirit. Stop for a second. binary thinking, I just realized, and there's new words for it. It's kindred and siblings. So let's sing the last two verses, kindred and siblings, okay? All right, thank you. All right, sorry, Joy, go ahead. Thank you. Please be seated. So today we learned about some of our founders, those whose courage created the foundation for the Unitarian Universalism we practice today. And this congregation has also been created by 2 centuries of courage and conviction, by the generosity and compassion of countless people. And we are now the bearers of this tradition. It is ours to nurture and to pass on. So every week we take an offering to support the many life-saving ministries of this congregation. Let us carry on the path of those who preceded us, and let us be a generous people. If you're joining us online, you can mail us your financial gift, or you can give electronically through the Givelify or PayPal links on the church's webpage. Let us receive the offering. Please join with me in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. Thank you. So before we close, there are announcements. So the first is that I have 2 final Hangout sessions this week for us to get to know each other. I'd love to get to know more of you. And I'll be at the Post Commons on Tuesday from 1 to 3. Stop by for coffee and good conversation. We had a lovely table of 8 last week. We had a great time. There will also be a Zoom Hangout for those of you who join us online, or for those of you who wouldn't be able to get here, on Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Just show up and we just hang out and talk. And the Zoom link is in the weekly newsletter. And I have some others here. If you're new to the congregation and would like to be added to our email list to receive the weekly info flyers and the newsletter, please fill out the visitor card found on the table beneath the pamphlet display in the fellowship hall, which is behind me. If you need a name tag, please fill out the blue name tag request card found on the table. And again, if you are visiting, you can stop by and let us know you are here. And I don't have it right in front of me, but the email's on the website. You can email us and let us know you're here, and we can also get you connected. If you've been attending services for a while and believe you've found your church home and would like to become a member, please talk to a board member about signing the membership book. Would the board members who are here please stand up so people wanting to join know who to talk to? Wonderful. There's 5 of you here. And also, I'm going to be offering a new UU series called Starting Point. We're going to be offering it 3 times. Me and Jennifer Lewis are facilitating it from the Alton side. We're also going to be joining with Elliot together, so we have critical mass. And it's 3 sessions starting September 11th. 3 are on Zoom, and the 4th one will be right here at the church. So if you want to be part of that class, just drop me an email, and I'll be happy to add you to the registration. There will be an open house this afternoon at 2 p.m. to bid farewell to longtime member Ron Glossop, who is moving to live with his son in Nashua, New Hampshire. The open house is at Village North Retirement Community at 11160 Village North Drive off Dunn Road, about a half mile past Christian Northeast Hospital. And then I had this on my thing, 2 free golf tickets. Anybody know the story behind these golf tickets? They're just available? Okay. Well, anybody who likes golf, first come, first serve. It's right up here. Run if you need to after the service is over. So, are there any other announcements before we close? Yes. Anyone else?
Also, you saw Mary sent an email this week. We're looking for volunteers to help us with the committees for the transition to the church. So we have a group that's going to help with selling, a group that's going to help with moving, and a group that's going to help with just general congregation care. So if you're interested, please talk to a board member, talk to Reverend Krista, and figure out what it is. Or you may interest in support. Thank you.
And you had your hand up.
My mom went in the hospital yesterday.
What's your name, Jamie? Jessie shared that her mom's in the hospital with a bad case of gout. Please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. We will do that. Okay. Our closing words. When our ancestors spoke of heaven, they were speaking of this moment. When they went on about nirvana, they imagined a time like this. When they sang of paradise, it was this morning they imagined. A time when all the mysteries of life and death are blended in a community of praise, when the bones of ancient lovers are given flesh again in our own bodies, teachers of long ago, speaking of love and truth once more in lives so ordinary, they are extraordinary. I invite you to join me in prayer for our chalice extinguishing words. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Thank you. Thank you for coming here today. You've been a blessing for us to be together. Go in peace.